Streaming is the scam. Piracy is back from moon.
For decades, the internet has enabled all the content you could possibly dream of to be accessible at a fingertip. Streaming is now everywhere. Any movie or TV show you want to watch is there. And yet, just as we're saturated with streaming content everywhere,
It's too much.
piracy is now back and becoming normal again. Because people are starting to
Yeah, because you want to watch one episode here or one show on the Netflix, then you want to watch like a House of Dragons and it's gonna be on HBO Max, and then you're gonna watch, for example, Invincible, and then you have to go to the Prime, and then you want to watch Star Wars. Oh, then there's no way everyone's gonna have a membership for all of them. That's crazy. If they want, get together. Make one master streaming service where all of them get the juice, and that's it. And to be fair, Apple TV has some crazy shows, and all the shows, most of them are very high quality. Making a monopoly, absolutely, man, absolutely. Because like the honest truth is that I'd rather pay for one service than paying for like 10 dog shit ones. That's just how it is, honest. Netflix used to be the king. Then everyone started to copy Netflix. And now Netflix not only increases the prices, and it is like really, really bad.
realize that modern streaming is a scam and millions of people are just simply tuning out. And despite the ads and the price
quality
hikes,
is lower.
the studios are still losing billions because we are going into a new golden age of piracy. But this wave of piracy is simply a wider symptom that the internet as a whole is dying. The same greedy decisions that are killing streaming are also undermining the entire internet as a whole, and possibly the rest of the economy. And now as we see governments restricting 18+ content, requiring users to do facial scans and upload their physical IDs to gatekeep the internet, trying to
I saw that YouTube also wants to do something like this. How do you guys feel about this? I mean, like, in a way can be better, but I also understand how, the internet lives a lot from the people liking to be anonymous, to either to troll, to flame, but in general, it's just like way more comfortable to be anonymous. Like sometimes you can actually say your own real opinions just because it's not attached to your real name. But once you actually put your ID attached to the things, then probably you also can be, for example, go to court or someone like how can he actually get like really bad? Well, that's how
literally
it
block
is.
VPNs as we speak, it's clear we're in for a new age of piracy. But how did this all start and where did this come from? Let's start with streaming.
That website, boys. That website.
People used to think it was the future, but the state of it today makes you nostalgic for the past. When you compare the modern state of streaming to what we used to have, it's nice.
Some people still live in the
Netflix
past.
Was the only show in town, it was insanely cheap compared to cable.
This was
For
good.
just $8 a month, you had access to Netflix's entire catalog. While Netflix didn't make their own shows, you still got far more value for money. These were the days before every Hollywood studio had segregated its backlog for its own platform. Pretty much anything you could imagine was on Netflix, available instantly. Compare that.
This was the golden age of streaming platforms. I think, like, to be honest, in music, it is still, I mean, like, you have Apple Music, you have Spotify, but I think, like, Spotify is, like, the go-to in, like, I don't know the market share, but I will, like, say that probably, like, Spotify has the majority of the market share.
To today, and you start to get a sense of just how messed up the
Spotify is
streaming
pretty good.
landscape has become. So let's see how it all stacks up in reality today. For the mainstream platforms, you've got Netflix, Amazon Prime, Hulu, HBO Max, and Disney Plus, Paramount Plus, Apple TV, and finally Peacock. We're already looking at over $100 a month, or $1,236 a year.
Insane.
And this is all for no improvement in service. All that gets you is the same level of ad-free access you would have had for $8 just a decade ago. Sure, you'd probably get more content paying $100 a month today than you would have gotten 10 years ago, but you just can't deny how insanely expensive it's getting for normal people. As we all
But really, you get like this insane amount of content, but do you really have a life or enough time in your life that you can literally consume every single platform? Like the content of every single platform? I feel like I highly doubt, unless you're unemployed and you're like playing video games and on the side monitor you're watching all the new shows, most likely you're not gonna have enough time for it.
Thought we were escaping cable prices, but now we're paying even more. But we're hardly done here. If you're into documentaries, you might want Curiosity Stream, which is another $5 a month. If you like anime, then Crunchyroll is another $8 a month minimum. And oftentimes, this is still with the ad-supported subscription tier. Often it's not even cheaper, it's just the old price they used to charge before they hiked it up. Some platforms like Amazon just force the adverts into their existing service, or charging their customers $3 extra a month to remove them. Yet the entire reason to often have these services is to not deal with constant.
And back in the day, I don't know about now, but Prime, like Amazon Prime used to be, or is still, I don't know, because I actually canceled, but it used to be like super high value. You used to have like Prime Video. You had Prime Music, which was like not crazy, but it was still there. There was like the service of the delivery, and there was still a free subscription on Twitch. So if you guys have a Amazon Prime, you can connect to your Twitch and go to twitch.tv/IndezYT and well, subscribe for free.
Ads anymore, and going back is seemingly a non-negotiable. It's why an estimated 25% of Prime Video's young adult users cancelled their subscription entirely when it was introduced. Plus, if you have any other subscriptions, like a Spotify subscription, ChatGPT subscription, even a subscription for your car, you'll end up just forking out.
What? What? A subscription for your car?
ChatGPT subscription.
Okay, I got this one. I don't have this one. I used to have this one. I canceled. I used to have this one, I canceled, and now I got it again because of ChatGPT 5. I just want to try it.
Even a subscription for your car.
But this, man, maybe I'm too broke, man. My car doesn't have a subscription, okay? I need a better card, I guess.
You'll end up just.
So, no modern cars, you have to buy the card, and you also have to pay a monthly subscription.
Forking out hundreds of dollars a month very easily. And so when the obvious alternative to much of this stuff is always going to be free, you can see why so many people have been willing just to say no to the nonsense, as millions of people have now been recently cancelling their subscriptions, and if things continue to get worse, this process will only accelerate. But before we get into the pirate ships threatening to sink,
on Tesla, autopilots is a monthly charge. Wow, that's insane monthly revenue for them. That's actually really fucking smart. That's why also Apple started getting more and more and more into services. So now you have like Apple TV, you have also the Apple Fitness Apple or whatever it is. Then you have Apple Music, and you have all these services because more than 1 billion people have an iPhone on their hands. So they already have the device. You just have to serve them with the, with the package. They even have this Apple One, which is like all the service in one, something like that.
The entire industry, we need to understand how we even got here in the first place. You see, the Hollywood of today is completely different to what it used to be. You have this image of a small set of studio executives and CEOs controlling the whole industry and taking the profits. While most of that's still true, they aren't working for themselves anymore. The past 2 decades have seen a process called financialization decimate Hollywood, as described in the book Derivative Media: How Wall Street Devours Culture. You see, the studios don't even own themselves anymore. They've often sold out to private equity, and here's how it works. Say you've got a struggling movie studio like MGM in 2004.
Okay.
They had been one of the biggest studios in Hollywood, but despite their rich catalogue of IPs and characters like James Bond and Spider-Man, the 90s and 2000s had not been kind to them. Now, saddled with debt from trying to stay relevant, the studio was looking for a way out, and this is where private equity comes along. They see what's called a distressed asset, and they have just the right tool to make profit from it: a leverage buyout. Using borrowed money, billions of it in this case, a few equity firms could take over a company like MGM and pay off the previous debts with even more borrowed cash. Often a larger competitor will then join the buyout so that the private equity firms can use them as a platform to extract even more profit. In MGM's case, the equity firms would join.
So this is like way above my payroll, man. That's why I have an accountant. This is like literally why I'm not rich. I am not rich because I don't understand money at that level, and I should. But the reality is, like, I never had this amount of money to even make like certain plays because, like for example, I went to my accountant and he say, "Hey, there are levels." So he told me like a game, right? So there are levels, and pretty much the more money you have, the more things you're gonna unlock that you can actually do these money moves to actually save more money. And I was like, okay, so if I have no money, I'm going to pay the biggest amount of taxes, basically. And he said, yes. Yes, you didn't unlock those levels yet.
By some of the other studios like Sony, eager to get their hands on MGM's licenses. MGM meanwhile took on a further $3.7 billion in debt to try and make this deal, nearly twice as much as the equity firms paid off when they bought it. Now the standard play is often to strip the assets and just move on. This is how private equity makes money from distressed assets. In MGM's case, Sony took the valuable characters, the catalogue of movies, and any other content which was potentially profitable, and all the other parts of MGM, like all the staff, were dead weights. As costs go down, profits remain the same for a little while the stock price goes up and the equity firm can make their money back. By the time the damage from the layoffs and the liquidation becomes clear, the firms that bought it will have probably sold it already, or they'll have made enough of stock dividends that they just don't care anymore. While the MGM buyout marked the beginning of a gold rush for private equity,
and this is all happen without the peasants understanding how these banks and law firms and like financial firms, they do all these big bucks, man. Like, because we are just not, our financial literacy of like the majority of the people are not enough. And I believe that, for example, in Portugal, they are trying to pass a bill for next year to actually put in schools financial literacy since like the 6th grade or something like that. So as a kid, you start understanding like the value of money and how can you actually start preparing yourself for the future. Until like now, there was nothing like that.
Really didn't go that well on paper. A few years later, MGM was still heavily in debt with barely anything left to sell to pay it off. Sony hadn't made as much on Spider-Man and James Bond as they thought, but the end result of all of this was that Hollywood became even more concentrated. MGM ceased to exist as it got traded from one equity firm to another, each one trying to extract the last bit of value from its corpse. Their characters and IP got swallowed up into Sony, backed by private equity.
Oh,
Hollywood
I remember
then constricted even more and sold
because now Spider-Man, it is from Sony.
Out to private equity once again. And we've seen how this process eventually unfolded with MGM, as the entire company got stripped and thrown away like a total car. The next 2 decades saw the same song and dance play out over and over again. In the same year, JP Morgan and some other firms bought out AMC. Cinemark was sold out to Madison Dearborn Partners. And in 2006, a group of investors led by the world's largest asset manager Blackstone bought out the Nielsen Company, which is a massive Hollywood audience data firm. Hulu then went a year later, as well as Univision not long afterwards. DreamWorks was then bought up in 2008 by private equity, Miramax in 2010, and
so all of these big boys are selling out. So they are all going broke?
One of Hollywood's largest talent agencies, WME, was brought out by the private equity firm Silver Lake. A year later, they then struck again, buying out another agency called IMG. And they were 2 of the 4 big ones. Some of IMG's clients included Taylor Swift and Justin Timberlake. And so in the space of 1 year, one private equity firm took control of a huge part of the industry. So why has no one ever heard about any of this? You think people would be interested in learning how just a few firms bought one of the biggest industries in the world. The whole of Hollywood has been bought out, and yet this was buried in the press, especially in the press that covers Hollywood. The Hollywood Reporter, Variety, Rolling Stone, IndieWire, and most other major entertainment news companies are owned by Penske Media Group. This is a conglomerate that was made to hoover up all the news companies and put them under one roof. And you can guess who's been bankrolling the operation. Private
the same
equity
company.
Firms have put hundreds of millions into it. Each time these companies change hands, the firm that ends up owning them tries to extract as much profit as possible. So they cut costs, which means laying off the staff. While the stock price might go up for a time and the firm might end up getting richer, the actual company they're buying ceases to function properly. And it's really hard to overstate the effect this has had on TV shows and movies as a whole. It explains why
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was saying. So the result is basically we have worse shows. The movies are so flat, man. Like, when was the last time you actually saw a great movie? I mean, I saw like recently. I saw Formula 1 from Apple. That was kind of cool. But the Superman, I was not a big fan. But like the majority of like these new movies are like the same as like the new games, man. Like they are just like, they feel like they lack soul or passion or like whatever it is, man. it just doesn't hit the same. And I don't think it's like me, like, oh, am I growing older? And but yeah, back in the day, like the movies used to be. No, I don't think it's like me aging. That's like it's just like I look at the movies and they just suck. That's just pretty much it.
Every movie just seems to flop nowadays. This is exactly why it's so...
Okay, and on top of that, the tickets from the movie theaters are so much more expensive. So the quality of the movies decrease, the price of the cinema tickets increase, and I'm like, I'm not going. I'm rarely, like, I used to be someone, I used to go with my friends or with my ex-girlfriend almost every week to the movies, man. Like, these many years ago. I used to go every freaking week. Now, I don't. And it's not because I watch at home, like all these movies. I don't. I just stopped watching as many movies as I used to. Just because I don't feel like they have the same quality. Now I think the new movies, the new era, are TV shows. I think TV shows are being like the new thing. And recently, not even new TV shows. I've been watching with my wife Sopranos for the past like 4 weeks. And we are like now at like season 4 or something. It is awesome. Sopranos is like one of the best series I ever watched. Like actually great acting.
hard to trust the media anymore, because our news and media is almost entirely...
Too many sequels, too many reboots, new stuff just feels like old ideas rehashed. Exactly. Exactly that.
highly owned by the same handful of private equity groups, which is why you should check out ground.news/moon, as Ground News gathers stories from over 50,000 sources around the world every single day. So instead of falling into algorithmic echo chambers, you can compare how the left, right and center are covering the exact same story. For example, let's take a...
This is a very good ad integration. Wow. What a this is an ad, but it was so well integrated. Really nice, man.
.news/moon to get 40% off unlimited access this month. Equity firms looking to cut costs have cut wages, media writer producer pay fell by 23% amidst a decade of buyouts, and actor pay and screenwriter pay dropped by similar levels as well. These stripped down, Skeleton Crew Studios can't output quality content at the same speed or quality. It's why we don't see things like Breaking Bad anymore. Breaking Bad, a 5-season masterpiece, came out across 2008 to 2013. This was just before the buyouts really took their effect. These
series so good.
Clockwork, they made a new series of one of the best shows of all time, which is something that's completely unheard of for a show of its size today. In fact, we today just see flop after flop in movies and TV. Nowadays, you'd be lucky if your favorite show was half as good and had a new series come out every 2 years. Meanwhile, the studios and their private equity puppet masters have done...
Bro, these new TV shows and then the new series of superheroes, I believe these like only 8-year-olds that they are watching that. I'm sorry, only like it must be like kids that they are watching it, because like adults that have a bit of level of like quality, they are not watching these garbage. Like seriously, it's so bad.
Everything they could to reduce costs in other ways by bypassing the writers and actors entirely. One way you might have noticed is their obsession with cranking out more reality TV. It fills out a streaming services library while costing far less to make. Private equity firms have coordinated on this because each one has exactly the same goal: reduce costs, increase shareholder profits. They operate on a short-term basis so that they can sell the stock, or just sell it to the next private equity firm in a couple of years if they overstretch what they already bought. This way, there's never actually any long-term thinking or passion behind any project today, not even in the media reporting on any of these films. The entire industry has been sold out completely. However, the most important thing here is that the only way they compete with each other now is through the hoarding and use of intellectual property. Those IPs and content sources that keep people on the streaming platform rather than the competitors. And this is where the industry is today, solely focused on the IP wars rather than anything else. And unfortunately, that seems to be the future of the entire industry. Here's why. Today's studio executives all generally agree that you need...
So basically, for the next 20 years, we're gonna keep recycling all the classic famous IPs, because the pricing of like these videos, the TV shows and the movies, they are getting more expensive because of inflation. So they don't want to finance movies that gonna cost like hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? on flops, and they still do, but it is flopping. So the more flops we're gonna have, it means like the more financial is gonna come, and the lower quality we're gonna have.
Around 200 million subscribers to keep a major streaming platform alive and well. This takes an insane amount of money to get enough content and keep people subscribed. Netflix spent around $17 billion on content in 2024 alone. They can afford it as by far the largest and most profitable streaming platform around. In fact, only 3 studios have this many subscribers: Amazon, Netflix, and Disney when you combine their 2 platforms. For the others, it's just a completely different story. There just isn't enough to go around, with every studio trying to take their own slice of the pie, and the smaller ones are taking a heavy financial beating. According to the New York Times, in 2023, Paramount lost $1.6 billion in streaming.
Can anyone tell me a good show from Paramount? Like an original Paramount one? I'm sure there is, but I don't remember them. Probably I already saw.
Comcast lost $2.7 billion, and even Disney lost $2.6 billion despite their massive size. And so how are they dealing with these catastrophic losses, and all the losses happening in the box offices right now for these companies? Well, private equity has dealt with this in their usual short-sighted way by squeezing every last drop out of their subscriber base. Not thinking long-term, not thinking about customer satisfaction, and not
just
thinking
money.
about future great movie making. Just short-term decisions to sell the stock. To do this, they've raised prices as high as they dare, and they've added adverts with extra charges to remove them.
This is the most ridiculous thing. You're paying a subscription, and inside the subscription, you're still paying ads. You guys remember that, like, for example, I use YouTube Premium. And honest truth, for many years, I didn't use it. I used to use ad block and things, but, you know, at a certain point, it started like being very weird. I had like to always try to get like a new ad block and all these things. And it was just like started being very annoying, right? So I just decided, you know what? If I'm going to be on the stream, I don't want to be dealing with this. So I bought it. And I'm telling you, man, bro, YouTube Premium is actually one of the best purchases. However, this being said, there are in regions, and I think on the US, they are now giving ads to people that are getting paid, that paid for the premium. I feel like if the day that I get an ad while I'm paying for the premium YouTube is the day that I'm gonna subscribe. Right there. Right there. Nah. If you're telling me that I'm gonna get ads on the premium and I'm already paying, I'm out. And that's what happened with a lot of people on the Netflix.
Result is similar to shrinkflation. You get less than before for even higher prices, completely ruining all customer satisfaction. One of the worst things you can do in business, but this can't go on forever. As we zoom out, we'll see that for once, this greed could actually be punished, and finally the consequences of these short-term actions.
You gotta upgrade to the Premium Plus Plus. Actually, there is a Black Mirror episode super good about that. So I think like without like spoiling too much, but like I think the girlfriend was gonna die or something like that, and he hired a service that he was gonna, you know, pretty much just make her become normal instead of her dying. But over the time, the service started becoming like so popular that became like the shitification, right? So at the time, it was just like $1,000 per month. Then then they kept increasing. So now the radius of that she could functioning, because she could only be alive while she was like getting like these wirelesses. Then the radius went from like 100 kilometers radius from her house to like 50. And if she wanted to get out of those 50 radius, she had to pay for the premium package. And then later on, it kept like getting worse and worse. And I'm not gonna spoil the end of the episode, but it's a really good episode.
Will hit these companies even harder.
This is a term called shitification. There's a lot of companies that are doing. CapCut, for example, is an editing tool. It is doing that, and many others. Like, they are free, they are amazing, they absorb all these audience, these users, and then the users are so used to. So it's like, man, maybe I'm going to pay for it, because changing to another, it is going to be very hard. So maybe I'm going to start paying for the $8. So whenever I started paying for the premium CapCut, it was like $8, and now it is $40 a month. You see how is that insane? It's absolutely insane. It's like literally double, like more than that, like 4 times the price, right? 5 times the price. Insane. It is in 2 years.
Comparison reveals why. The classic example for this is a chocolate bar. The big candy companies like Cadbury have steadily shrunk the product while keeping the price the same or even increasing the price. Most people don't really have a choice when it comes to things like cheap chocolates, so they can get away with it as long as their competitors do the same. But unfortunately for movie studios and their private equity overlords, people actually do have a real choice when it comes to streaming platforms. Through all this cost-cutting, penny pinching, and terrible business practices, private equity forgets that people have an entirely free option if they ever get sick of the major streaming platforms. And of course, we're in no way endorsing piracy here, but this is just an inevitable economic consequence of offering a bad service. As we zoom out to the wider industry surrounding digital content, we'll see this in full effect.
And also what you guys have like imagined here, one of the things you were showing is that now YouTube is also becoming super popular because YouTube is free, right? You get the ads, but it is free. You don't have to pay for anything. Also, you have, for example, Twitch or the live streaming or Kicks. Like these, types of entertainment are also getting like super popular just because people don't have to pay for it. They pay if they want to support the streamer or use the Twitch Prime and all these things, but you don't have to.
As we zoom out to the wider industry surrounding digital content, we'll see this in full effect. Valve are the kings of digital content distribution thanks to the long-lasting dominance of Steam. Games are an industry that encourages piracy like no other, especially now that you're probably going to be downloading them whether you follow the law or not. Meanwhile, Steam has remained on top for years now, despite other companies like Tencent through Epic Games throwing billions and billions at trying to unseat them. Despite how many new games they give away, despite how easy pirating is, people just prefer to use Steam. Gabe Newell, the CEO of Valve, is often quoted when it comes to—
I have a friend of mine that every day he just logs in on the Epic Games to collect the free game of the week or the month or something like that. And he has like a huge catalog of games that he can play for free.
Piracy.
What's Valve's take on piracy?
Piracy to us, so we don't really worry about piracy. When we think, when you look at the top 10 issues on our list at any given point in time, piracy is almost never, something that's on that list. And the reason that we think that we don't have issues with piracy is that there's misconceptions in the industry about what piracy is, right?
He must understand it after all, having beaten it so thoroughly. Valve didn't need to worry about privacy like Gabe said because they know how it works. Some people will just always pirate everything and you can't reach those consumers and there's just no point trying. But most people often want to buy games. They don't want the viruses that come with piracy, they don't want all the issues, and they might just want to support game companies. Oftentimes they just don't want to even break the law. There's obviously a lot of reasons not to pirate generally. People often only pirate when there's just no other choice or when they feel like there's no other choice. They simply—
Actually, this is so true. I rarely pirate a game, man. Rarely do. No, I don't think I have like I mean, whenever I was a kid, yeah, I didn't have money, okay? I was a kid, all right? Like my mom would not buy me all the games that I want. But nowadays, no, not really. If I want to play something or I just buy it, or also we have like games that are free to play, right? So they always have an option. But when it comes to shows, yeah, maybe that's a different story.
Take the path of least resistance. If everything you want to watch is on Netflix and the costs are reasonable, lots of people will just buy a Netflix subscription.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
When the service is—
because like, listen, if Netflix was still like $8 or $10 per month, and I had every single show that I want to watch and all the shows that are coming are really good, I had no reason to actually go out of my way and, for example, pirate, right? Because the commodity of like just going there on the apps, like here, I open the app, I can watch directly. I don't have to waste time to go like these websites to download and all these things, like we all know how piracy works, right? So just make it like that the quality and the pricing is reasonable enough for people to actually see the value, to not go through the struggle of wasting their like 30 minutes or 40 minutes to go through all of these things every day to try to find it for free. That's pretty much it.
Poor and expensive like it is today, a much larger proportion of people will just pirate instead. So game companies like Steam can get around this because they offer a really good service. You actually buy a game on Steam and you can download it anywhere. You're not just limited to a few designated devices and you aren't region locked. It won't rotate out of Steam's library in a month or two, making it inaccessible. They offer something much closer to actual ownership. Meanwhile, other game companies offer such a bad service that people had to make a petition just to try and force them to do the
Guys, talking. Look at the first company. List of companies opposed to stop killing games. Look at the first one. Look at Got in 4K, boys. Activision Blizzard. Now it's Microsoft Blizzard, I think.
service that people had to make a petition just to try and force them to do the bare minimum and actually keep a game functional that people have already paid for. It's called Stop Killing Games, and really it's just asking for the bare minimum in service. Ubisoft's game The Crew is the example that the petition uses. When it was released, it was always online and you needed to log into Ubisoft's dedicated servers to play it. Now it's old and Ubisoft wants to take the servers offline, but this will then mean a game that people paid for will just cease to function. The petition doesn't even force them to keep the servers running. Instead, all it asks for is that these companies must let players run their own private server. It's a tiny cost in the long run for these massive conglomerates, but these
it's like back in the day, man. You just download the game is on your PC, just runs locally. Like, why everything has to be like a live service game? It's like, it's so annoying.
Companies have all lobbied together to fight this. And the ironic thing here is that the pirates have actually gotten the best service by far in the case of The Crew. A cracked version of a private server has been floating around for ages now. A common consequence of the medieval attitude most companies take towards piracy is that the paying, law-abiding customers always just get punished in the end anyway. It's all—
Man, the land parties, man. Those were the days. Yes. I still remember when my high school used to do a LAN party. I used to come with my tower, my monitor, my mouse, and my keyboard. This was glorious. It was like very similar to this, a bit like smaller because we were less.
typical of short-sighted decisions made because the private equity companies at the top are the ones who are really pulling the strings. And we might have praised Valve, but they aren't doing anything that amazing. They're just not buying into the same business model that everyone else seems to be following right now. But maybe that is amazing though, just considering how every other company seems to shoot itself in the foot. It's all the result of a classic expand and squeeze model that startups have been using for years. Uber's a great example. First, they took in as much investor capital as they could, expanding their service to the world while losing billions just to grow larger. Then when they had a large enough market share, they switched—
This is what I was saying. This is a perfect example of the shitification.
to squeeze model. That's when the higher surge pricing came in. The lower pay for drivers, simply just a poorer service for more money. And people couldn't go back to what they used to have as it was already too late and they'd gotten too used to the service.
Exactly.
Spotify actually did the same thing. They even used piracy to their advantage. At first, lots of their catalog was downloaded off of sites like Napster. They skirted the law and took control of the market before the big labels could organize themselves, offering a better service that beats the pirates. Later, to keep their position, they made a deal with the big labels. They sold out the artists in favor of hedge funds and private equity, and it would end up making both of them far richer at the expense of the people actually making most of the music. Now, Spotify's just another arm of private equity interests that already own the music industry. It was only their absolute dominance over the market that forced the labels to actually work together and accept their place. Otherwise, every major music label would have its own version of Spotify, just like we have with movie and TV streaming platforms. And you can actually tell they're all owned by private equity now just based on their decisions. You might—
So this is what I was saying. You know, like all of these ones are like you guys go, if we go back like 20 minutes ago, right? When I said that this is like for the user, I think this is probably the best solution because you're gonna have all the music that you want in the same service. And even if it's gonna be a bit more expensive, I think it's still fine. Because I feel like it is annoying to use two services to watch two different things or to listen to especially on music. Especially in music, I cannot see myself, oh, now I want to listen to Metallica. Oh, okay, let me go on Apple Music. Oh, now I'm feeling like to listen Linkin Park. Okay, now I have to go to Spotify. Like, how annoying that'll be, right?
platforms. And you can actually tell they're all owned by private equity now just based on their decisions. You might be tired of hearing them by now because they fit the exact same pattern we've seen over and over again. Spotify even recently moved to squeeze costs by reducing royalties even more for small artists. Now, because of their arbitrary decision, each track now needs at least 1,000 streams a year to make any money at all. It runs alongside their constant pressure on free users. Now you can't even choose which specific songs to listen to if you don't have a premium account, and there's even more adverts constantly interrupting the music. Meanwhile, Daniel Ek, the CEO, has invested $700 million of these profits into
I feel like if you're an active listener on Spotify, watching it or listening without the premium is just cancer, man. Like back in the day, it used to be like one ad every hour. Then it was like every 30 minutes. Now it's been a long time since I listened, but I remember it was like maybe like what, 20 minutes every 15 minutes. You had like these ads. It's like super annoying. So it's like also I feel like they make it on purpose because it becomes like so obnoxious that or you're gonna quit or you're gonna buy the subscription. The same way as I tell you guys that, for example, on Diablo Immortal, they're never gonna fix the matchmaking because whenever you're facing these big whales, you have a choice. Or you keep spending money in the game to be as strong as them, or you're gonna quit the game, right? It's like these things are annoying on purpose. They are made by design.
AI military companies. And you can bet if Netflix had taken more of the market, the big movie studios might have struck a similar deal. But instead, we got the splintered, unstable ecosystem we have today. Which brings us to the final chapter of our journey down the corporate rabbit hole. And as we zoom out to the wider internet, it's all been decimated by these same corporate tactics. Social media companies pushed forward by their investors have done everything they can to sanitize online discussion and make it suitable for advertisers. Meanwhile, the actual content has been degraded by corporate shit-sighted thinking and is now far worse. Want to know the release date of the next season of The Boys? This hypothetical article might tell you, but first you'll get the legally mandated cookie message. This is here because
Bro, we have to stop killing games. Can we have stopped the pop-ups? Like, seriously, nowadays, I don't even go to news websites. I don't. Like, you try to go to a news website to read an article, they give you the first paragraph and they are already asking for the premium. Before that, you have 300 pop-ups. It is just so annoying.
Because of efforts to regulate corporate data theft. And good luck finding the reject all button if there even is one. Now they're trying to hide it as much as they legally can. Then there's the anti-ad blocker message next. Either you comply or you try to bypass it some other way. Yet again, the people following the rules get invasive adverts. The people who find a way to get around them to read in peace. Then you finally get the ad.
To be fair, I really don't mind these ads as long as they are, if it's like done with a well-tasted like the web design and they are well integrated on the website, I don't mind because I also understand this is a business, okay? They gotta make the money some way. But I don't mind giving you my ad revenue view for you as long as you're giving me the information that I want, right? I think that's fair. I give you the ad, you give me the information for free. The problem is that you guys know like those very clickbaity like SEO, search optimization blog posts that, oh, I'm going to give you a recipe. And then the recipe is like 24 steps. And the first one is like add water. Then you click on the next because it's going to count as a new page view. So it's going to be more AdSense for them. And now add salt. Okay. Now warm water. Okay, you know, like they make it like these tutorials like super annoying for you to even watch a recipe. This is just an example, just because they are trying to farm you.
Adverts. The people who find a way to get around them to read in peace. Then you finally get the actual article. But because the massive private equity conglomerate fired most of the writers, it would mostly be rushed out insane drivel about a show rather than the actual question the headline asks, and will either pander to the film or diss the film.
Great show.
Based on its narrative, and the investors' preferences running the entire industry, which just makes the dead internet theory true in an entirely different way. As bots get more common and start writing all of these articles for these private equity firms, there won't even be any real human opinion here. And the more bots there are commenting and posting on all of this slop, the worse it will get and the harder it will become to find real information made by actual humans.
So do you guys think that the solution for this is to add our ID, our real ID to our account, so we are like a verified account? I think that there's probably that's the only solution, right? Like honestly, you then what we have to find a way to verify if it is really a real person in the future.
Making the internet even creepier and more controlled than we see today. Each inconvenience for the consumer is because of a greedy decision solely to get short-term profits and sell a company. And these short-sighted policies are really infecting everything. But because of this, it might actually help the streaming situation, as this might actually be the one sector where there will always be an alternative to the corporate route. If it gets worse and worse, there will always be a pressure release valve as we see today. And yet these companies still wonder why piracy is massively increasing today. And if they make it even worse for the consumer, more and more people will just leave and this whole corporate ecosystem could collapse under its own weight, as too many short-term decisions end up being catastrophic. But unfortunately, this just isn't the same.
Bro, what is this? Why did you even make this game? This movie? Madame Web. What the fuck? Like, what is this? Madame Web. Like, who is watching this? Like, seriously, who is watching this?
This just isn't the same for other industries. We already talked about shrinkflation and chocolate bars, but other products and services have similar problems. Take cars for example, private equity is all over the manufacturers. They're the ones pushing for things like a subscription cost for heated seats. And we're not actually joking, this was a real idea pushed by BMW. Just £10 a month in the UK would unlock this feature, which they'd already added to the car. It's simply a completely transparent attempt to squeeze even more money from the customers in whatever way they can. And really it just makes it even sadder that the old anti-piracy ads still isn't true. If you could actually download a car, maybe...
For me, there was a friend of mine that recently bought an Audi Q3 Sportsback, something like that. Whenever he told me that the car already has a camera, but for the camera to be activated, he has to pay 1,500 euros more. I was like, what? So you bought an expensive car, and on top of that, to activate the rear mirror camera, you have to pay 1,500 more after you got the car. It's like these upgrades.
Things would be a little bit different.
Because the stupid thing is, like, if you pay 1,500 euros or dollars, but then you have to go there and they have to install the camera, but the camera is already in the card. You're just paying to activate it. So why not coming like with it?
Who can...
Man, this was a great video, man.